This is week 2, class 2. And we're talking about business travel today. So business travel is when you travel for work. Sometimes people can blend the two, which I've done in the past. Maybe I'm working Monday to Friday in Newfoundland, for example. That's my business travel. But maybe I'll travel in on Friday evening and then spend Saturday, Sunday in Newfoundland sightseeing. So that would be some leisure travel before my business travel, combining the two. But business travel is when you travel for work. Maybe you're going to a meeting, maybe it's just part of your job, maybe it's a conference or to make an agreement, sign a contract, whatever the case is. Business travel is traveling for business. It's exactly what it sounds like. And you can also call it corporate travel. It means the same thing. Business travel, corporate travel. It's the same idea. Here's a fact about business travel. The profile who's grown the most in recent years is the female business traveler, shown the highest percentage of growth over the last 30 years. When you look at the Travel Corporation, which is the parent company that owns the company I work for called Contiki, they have tons and tons of female leaders. The president of Contiki Canada is female, and it just shows, and the president of, or the vice president of Trafalgar as well. So it shows you that there is this growth and this demand for business travelers, and specifically female business travelers. So what are the characteristics of business travelers? How do they differ from leisure travelers, people who are just traveling for fun, or what we called VFR yesterday, visiting family and relatives? How is the business traveler different from them? So it's based on the needs of the employer, not the traveler. So it's the business they work for, the company they work for, tells them where to go and when. They travel to buy or sell goods or services and to visit branch offices. Let's stick with Newfoundland since I've used that as an example already. When I go to Newfoundland, it is part of my territory in my working area. Actually, now I do all of Canada. I don't know if I told you that, but originally I was covering travel agent sales and direct sales for Southern Ontario, Northern Ontario, and Atlantic Canada. Then I took over all of Ontario, so including Toronto to Ottawa. And now I do all of Canada, so easier to explain to people what I do. I just oversee all of the sales in Canada. So what I would do when I'm traveling, I print out a list of the travel agencies in whatever city I'm visiting. Let's say Newfoundland, I'm in St. John's, and I'll print out a list of the travel agencies and I'll visit each of them to update travel agents on product, tell them about any incentives. Maybe there's contests going on right now that they want to know about, or sales, or how they can advertise, or anything like that. But that's what I would be doing in my business travel. Sherilyn, the president of Contiki Canada, she might be traveling to sign contracts with travel agencies, saying what their targets are and determining overrides. Remember, we mentioned that last time, last class. And so Sherilyn might go to these as a business traveler to the head offices of these travel agencies and say, if you sell 50 passengers for us next year, we'll give you 15% commission. If you sell 100 passengers, we'll give you 17%. If you missed yesterday's class, that's called an override, when you meet a target and then go over it and you get more commission because of that. So different reasons for business traveling, going to different places and for different people. Attending company meetings. It was yesterday in a different class I mentioned that I've traveled before to do meetings as well. And the example I used was Mont Tremblant, north of Montreal. They flew me from Hamilton to Montreal when Air Canada was doing that route. And we went up to Mont Tremblant. We had a beautiful hotel. There were deer in the yard, and we had some meetings. So they paid for the hotel and the flight and everything. And that was considered business travel because it was for work. And lastly, to seek new business opportunities and attend conferences and seminars. So we can kind of, within the business traveler segment, we can break it down even more. You've got the frequent business traveler. That can be anywhere from, let's say, like a couple times a week to maybe once a month, frequent enough that they have one of those frequent flyer status cards. So whether that's Aeroplan or for Air Canada or maybe a different airline, they probably have that. So that means that they probably have access to the lounges and things like that. There's the luxury business traveler who tend to be executive level, meaning a president of a brand or a company or the CEO. And that means they have even more perks like traveling business class and first class and those sorts of things, and the international business traveler. Most of my travel for work is domestic within Canada. But once or twice a year, we do travel internationally. And so that would qualify, that would classify in that category there, international business traveler. So as a travel agent, why would you want to specialize in business travel? There's a lot of reasons why. My mouse is finicky today. There we go. So business travel is a niche. It's a specialty, and it can earn you lots of money. Companies spend billions of dollars a year on business travel. It did settle down a little bit during COVID, but it's starting to pick up again. I have lots of travel professionals on my social media, whether that's Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever it might be. And I see that they're all traveling. The vice president of a company called Travel Edge, his name's Gavin, and he's the vice president of the leisure department. And he's been traveling quite a bit. He posted the other day that he's traveled, oh, I forget the exact number, but it was something like 10 countries already this year. And so when you're at that executive level, you do need to travel for these conferences and contracts and negotiations and things. So it did settle a bit during COVID, but it's starting to pick back up again. Business travelers fill more than half of all non-resort hotel rooms and airline flights. So over 50% of non-resort hotel rooms and airline flights are business passengers. They can't wait for sales or bargains. If there's a meeting on a certain day, they have to go. Doesn't matter if there's a sale or if it's full price. Now that you're familiar with booking classes, maybe there's only Y class left in economy, full fare economy, they still have to go. So they still have to pay that higher price. And the higher the base fare, the higher the commission you're getting as an agent to sell that. Recession, so economic recessions actually encourage business travel to find solutions and to meet. And bookings are easy with business travel. As a travel agent, it's easier for you to have a business travel client once you get to know them, because they tend to want the same things. I need to go back to head office in, let's say, Rhode Island. There's a tour company called Colette Vacations. Mainly American clientele, but they do sell globally, and their head office is in Rhode Island. And so maybe if I'm working for them, every month I have to go to Rhode Island. And so I would contact my business travel agent and say, I'm going back to head office, it's these days that I need, and they would just do it for me. So it's much less back and forth because I already know what I want as a business traveler. So where do travel agents work when they're corporate travel agents, or in other words, travel agents who sell to business clients? They work at corporate travel agencies. And so that can be a specific niche agency that only deal with corporate travel. This could be a niche for your project if you're interested in business travel. You can decide to research business travel. So corporate travel agencies can exclusively deal with business travel. In other words, that's the only thing they book. They don't book leisure, or they can be part of a larger agency and just a division of that agency, like Flight Centre. When I worked for them, I was in the leisure side, but they also had a corporate side. They had a business side as well. And corporate agencies often offer something called travel management services. So we're still in a travel agency now. And let's say in the Flight Centre example, we're in their corporate side, and we might offer something called travel management services. And that's something where a company, let's say CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC comes to us at our travel agency and says, we want you to handle all of our business travel. Every employee who travels with us or who travels as part of work with CBC, they will book with you. So what you need to do is develop and monitor a policy. If they don't already have one, you'll have to develop it. If they do have one, you'll have to monitor it. And we'll talk about what a travel policy is in detail, but in general, it's kind of a guideline that says how they can travel. It puts restrictions on how they can travel. So because the company is paying for it, they might say you have to travel economy class, the cheapest economy class available. Otherwise, people might just book a first class ticket every time and then the company would lose lots of money. Something like that. It might give you a maximum dollar amount for meals every day or for hotels, but we'll talk about that more specifically. But that's a travel policy. So as a business travel agent, a corporate travel agent, I might need to be aware of different companies' travel policies and making sure that what I book lines up with that travel policy. You'll have to complete travel management reports. How many people are traveling? Where are they going? How much are they spending? How often do they travel? You'll have to deliver documents. Most of these are electronic these days. You used to have to deliver physical tickets that you would rip and give to somebody. But excuse me, now it's all electronic mainly. So tickets, travel insurance documents, vouchers for services like transfers or hotels. That's your job to get that to the travelers. You have to be easily accessible. I mentioned in our first week that when I was at Flight Centre, the business travel agents, if they got a request by email, they had to reply within 15 minutes. So it's a really quick turnaround. And again, like I said, when I mentioned that, they don't need to answer with a booking or with a solution in 15 minutes. They just need to say, I got your email, I'm working on it, I'll get back to you. They have extended office hours. Lots of the time they need to be available 24/7, literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And at Flight Centre, they would take turns. So you would work your regular shift, whatever it was, maybe it was 9 to 5. And let's say there was a team of 10 people in that office. One person would take turns, they would take turns. So one person would get a laptop for a week and a cell phone. And they would have to be available 24 hours a day during that week in case any of their business clients might need to make a phone call or a change to their flight. And you have to be familiar with frequent traveler programs, whether that's Aeroplan with Air Canada, Miles and More with Lufthansa. Many airlines have some kind of frequent traveler program where you can collect points. And they add up really quickly. And once you get to a certain status, you get all these sorts of bonuses like lounge passes and things like that. So the corporate travel agent needs to know the special business amenities offered by the different sectors. So every sector has some way of appealing to business travelers. If you look at those sectors of tourism, accommodation, travel services, transportation, all of that, usually each of those will have something specific for business travelers. You need to know where the convenient hotels are as a corporate travel agent. And convenient might be different for a business traveler than it is for a leisure traveler. Leisure travelers tend to like to be close to a city center or where all of the tourist sites are, if it's not the city center. Business travelers, convenient for them might mean a hotel that's close to the airport or a hotel that's close to where their conference might be. And that could be different from where the leisure travelers are going. Unfortunately, sometimes you fly to a place and you only have time to go to a meeting and then come home. And so maybe your meeting is at the airport hotel, which happens frequently. So you'd fly to a destination, go to the hotel, have your meeting, sleep in the hotel, and fly home in the morning. It's a little bit unfortunate because you don't get to see the place you're going to. But that might be a convenient location for a hotel for a business traveler, even though it might not be for a leisure traveler. And speaking of getting to where your conference might be, this business travel agent might need to know the best way to get from the airport to the conference venue, if it's downtown or if it's somewhere else. Is there public transportation? Is it easy? Is there Uber? Are taxis safe? If none of that is available, maybe you want to arrange a private transfer for them. Again, business travelers care less about price. So even if it's $100, one direction to bring somebody 20 minutes down the road in a private car, maybe they want to do that. That way, when they land at the airport, they get to arrivals and someone is standing there with their name on a sign and it says, Mr. Kivel from Mohawk College, we're here to take you to the conference. That's quite nice. Private car, it's a bit less stressful. You don't have to organize anything when you get there. And once again, the details of the frequent flyer programs. So when it comes to airlines, what do you think are specific ways that airlines appeal to business travelers? One of them is in this picture. But what do you think? How do airlines appeal to business travelers? Good one public message in the chat. Frequent flyer programs. Absolutely. Maybe not exclusively for the business traveler, but it definitely benefits them because they travel so often. You'd be hard pressed to find a leisure traveler that travels more frequently than a business traveler. So absolutely, frequent flyer programs. Yep. And remember, you can give me a private message if you're more comfortable that way. One of these benefits is in the picture, although you might not recognize what that is, or I mean, where it is. So we have a private airport lounge in the picture. Yes, and so these sometimes are publicly available, like the Plaza Premium Lounge in the Toronto Airport. Well, they're global, but in the Toronto Airport, there's a Plaza Premium Lounge in the domestic terminal and in both of the international departure zones of Terminal 1 and Terminal 3. And you can just pay to get in there. But some of the lounges, like the Maple Leaf Lounge, for Air Canada in the Toronto airport, you need to be at a certain status to get in there. And that status comes from traveling frequently. Maybe that's for business. And so in those lounges, especially the Maple Leaf Lounge, I know for sure, they have these nice private booths. Sometimes they're in their own rooms that you can use. Every week at Kentucky at 11:30, we have a team meeting, and it's done over Teams, which is kind of like Zoom. And one time I was at the airport at that time at 11:30 on a Monday. So I went to the lounge. I had my Aeroplan status card at the time, and I was able to get one of these desks, but it was in its own private room, really quite nice and free to use once you've got the status card. And I had my meeting there. So it's a really nice area. It's quiet, it's private. You don't have the hectic feeling of being right next to a departure gate. So that's VIP Lounge. We did mention the frequent flyer programs in airport office spaces. That can be in a lounge. It can be just in a different section of the airport. More frequently now, especially on domestic flights, you'll see that there's onboard Wi-Fi. Generally, you have to pay extra for it. But if you are at a certain status level with your airline, you might get it for free. Business class is what it sounds like. It could be for business passengers. Frequent flyer programs we mentioned in the chat already. And sometimes you'll get corporate discounts and rebates. Excuse me, my throat's giving me issues today. I've got a cough drop in, but I hope it's not too distracting for you. So, like I said, every sector of the travel industry has in some way a way to appeal to business travelers. So here's a video from Air Canada, specifically about business travel.
Air Canada Corporate Rewards is a comprehensive travel solution built for today's business. Get discounts on flights, plus travel rewards every time your company books a trip. Manage itineraries online and keep track of it all with just a few clicks. Take your business to new heights every time you fly with us across our global network, with benefits and corporate offers for your company and employees, like Maple Leaf Lounge access, e-upgrade credits, and exclusive promotions. Get started and watch as more travel leads to multiple rewards. Business travel made simple and rewarding. Get on board at aircanada.com/corporate rewards.
Oh, I'm still muted. Okay, good. So it shows you just, there's a lot of media out there from different suppliers, whether it's an airline, car rental company, hotel, etc., about business travel and how they make your life easier. Because everybody knows there's lots of money in business travel, so they want your business. They want your bookings. Okay, we talked about airlines. Now, how do you suppose a car rental company might appeal to business travelers? Well, there's the same as airlines. You've got kind of like a frequent flyer program, but with car rentals. Sometimes the actual frequent flyer program with the airline, they cooperate with the car rental companies. So Budget Rental Cars is the name of a car rental company, and they actually work with Aeroplan. Sometimes a car rental company might have their own frequent renter program, if you want to call it that. In the chat, we've got in-terminal pickups and special discounts. Yes, so you don't need to leave the airport to get your car. That's, of course, a bonus. Special discounts, that would be another bonus. Some of them offer you memberships where you can get express rental service. That way they already know your details. They know your driver's license number. They know everything else that they look for. So all they need to do is hand you a set of keys and you sign a paper. So quite often you'll see that they have two separate lineups. One, I forget, rapid. I forget what they call it at Budget, but eventually I got to that point as well because I would need to drive a car around where I was traveling for work. I'd have to drive to all these travel agencies. So Fast Break, Rapid Break, something like that. I would have my own line and I would get in and out really quickly. And sometimes you'll be able to qualify for other incentives, things that usually cost extra money, like GPS systems or roadside service or destination travel guides. So that's car rental companies. Now, rail companies and how they appeal to business travelers. Well, it's similar to airlines, but there's some extra perks that don't really come with airlines. Quite often, rail stations, like Union Station in Toronto, they're right downtown. So it's easier, more direct if you're able to take rail wherever you might be to get to a more central location than if you were flying. There's no traffic on rail routes, so it's less likely you'll end up in a traffic jam. There could be delays, like on Via Rail, sometimes there are delays. And it's because Via doesn't own the train tracks. The train tracks are actually owned by CP and CN, Canadian National and Canadian Pacific. And that's why there might be delays on Via Rail, because if there's two trains trying to use the same train track, those CP and CN trains, the ones that are doing shipping, they get to go first because they own the tracks. Via Rail is renting them, so they have to wait. So sometimes there are delays, but at least you're not sitting on a highway and stuck in gridlock traffic. For rail companies, you can have business meetings en route. So you can see in the picture that these people have those two seats and two seats that face each other, and they can have meetings. And they have business class as well. So a bit more spacious. They might have Wi-Fi en route. This is what I did on a Manulife. Speaking of Manulife, before I started recording today, I was talking about Manulife travel insurance. In 1 year at my flight center, I sold the most travel insurance. And so they sent me on a FAM. And this FAM was just local. It was to Windsor, Ontario, where we stayed at the Caesars Casino. Same people who make Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. They have a casino in Windsor. And we took the Via train. We took business class and we had a great time. They took us around in a limo when we got there and they treated us to a nice dinner. We went and saw a hockey game. And we took the Via Rail business class there and back. And so those are some different ways that a rail company can appeal to the business traveler. And lastly, I think, is accommodation. So how might accommodation appeal to the business traveler? So they also have executive lounges, business centers where you can go and use the printer, use their free Wi-Fi. You might need any sort of business services there. Sometimes they have a concierge there as well that might be able to make you dinner reservations or provide you a space for a meeting, organize that. You might be getting free high-speed Wi-Fi. Like I said, there could be concierge services. There could be a separate check-in where everybody goes to one check-in, but because you're a business traveler, you go to a different check-in that's quieter and a bit more quick. Frequent stay programs, just like airlines, just like car rentals, hotels will have frequent stay programs where you can gain points. And they can be with the hotel brand, or they can be with a third party. If you book on hotels.com, every 10th, if you stay 10 nights, you get one for free, I believe. And the free night is equal to the average cost of the nights that you used to get that free night. So the cost of your 10 nights on average, that's the value of your free night. And so when I'm traveling for work, I can use hotels.com and I get to keep those points personally, and then I use it for my personal travel. You could have negotiated rates. When I did my training for Flight Centre, I stayed at the Fairmont Royal York in Toronto, which is a really beautiful hotel. And I stayed there, I think, for 2 weeks. And I'm sure they had a discounted rate because they said, we're going to send this guy there for 2 weeks. Not only him, we'll give you all of our trainees. So can we get a discounted rate? They sometimes have business suites or even a whole floor just for business travelers. The worst is when you go to a hotel as a business traveler and you're there for work and suddenly a high school hockey team shows up on the same floor. It's a little bit loud. So it's nice to have specific executive floors exclusively for yourself. And like I mentioned earlier, express check-in and check-out. My last trip, I've traveled since, but my last trip before COVID was to Victoria in British Columbia. And it was a business travel trip. And I stayed there at the Fairmont as well. The reason is not because I have all this money, because Fairmonts are really expensive. The reason is when you have your IATA card and you can prove you're in the industry, you get really good discounts at Fairmont hotels. And so this was my last, actually, it was my last business trip, I think, aside from going to Toronto to head office before COVID. So I stayed at the Fairmont Empress Hotel, and here's a video specifically from them about their business travel amenities. So bringing back quite nice memories about traveling there. Of course, you see the beautiful amenities they have for business travelers and just for leisure travelers too. Um, the food, the room service, they have a bar there called Q Bar. And when you're traveling with business, you don't have to pay for your food either. They'll give you a dollar amount that you can spend every day on your food. Most companies will. My company doesn't give me a specific dollar amount, but I know just not to go too crazy with it. But if they do give you, let's say, $50, $60 a day for food, I don't often eat breakfast, so that saves me some money. Lunch, I'll have a really light lunch, so then I can really spoil myself for dinner and have a beautiful dinner at these hotel restaurants. You can get room service, and it's all paid for when you're traveling for business. So I was able to go to that Q bar and have very beautiful cocktails in this nice old historic building, and it was all free. Well, bringing back quite nice memories. So here's a comparison chart about how corporate agents are different from leisure agents, and I'm talking about travel agents. So corporate travel agents, this is maybe what would apply to them. Leisure agents, this is what would apply to them. And you can see the differences right away. Some of them we've talked about already. That corporate travelers don't care as much about price. Leisure travelers, quite often their number one concern is price. Corporate travel agents, they don't care about changes and cancellations. I think I mentioned to this class already that one time I was traveling and the president, Sherilyn, she called me and said, we have an important meeting coming up. Can you come back for that meeting? And I said, yes, but it's the day before I was supposed to come back. And she said, that's okay, just change your flight. Doesn't matter how much it costs. We need you at this meeting. So it's kind of a good thing for corporate travel agents because they make money off of changes. You can charge to do those changes. And as a leisure agent, you're working more with people's dreams. This is my dream trip. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. But as a corporate agent, you're more or less working with logistics. I need to be at this place at this time for this meeting. The other ones that I wanted to mention are the lead times. So the time between when you're asked, can you book me a trip, and when they actually book it. It's really short for business travelers. Hi, Ian, I need to go to head office in Rhode Island next week. And so you just book it. And leisure agents, it's more of a longer process. The other benefit, of course, with booking last minute airfare like that is that the air is more expensive. If you book really far in advance, it's usually cheaper because those lower classes of fare are still available. If you wait too long, some of those classes disappear. Some classes of service have something called an advanced purchase rule when you look at the rules in Apollo or in Sabre. And some of those booking classes, especially the cheaper ones, they have advanced purchase rules, which means this fare will be available, but only if you book 3 weeks in advance or more. So for a few reasons, the cost of tickets increases as you get to your departure dates. So that can get you more money as a business travel agent because sometimes people book last minute for these trips. And the other one I wanted to mention is the conversion rate. And we've talked about this in the past. Conversion is when you get the question, I'd like to book a trip. Conversion is when you make that into a sale. So you're converting an inquiry to a sale, and that's called conversion. So business travelers tend to, or business travel agents have a higher conversion rate. More of their questions, more of their inquiries are turned into sales. But leisure agents have a lower conversion rate. Lots of the time you'll get phone calls or emails, or people might walk into your office and say, oh, I'd love to go to this place. And then you give them a quote and some information and you never see them again. And that's because that inquiry didn't convert. So leisure agents, more sensitive to cost, long lead times, less likely to change and cancel because of those fees, and a lower conversion rate. And corporate agents are the opposite. Business travel departments. This is a bit different. So we have a corporate travel agent, corporate travel agency, which is a travel agency that deals with corporate clients. A business travel department is different. That is a department within a corporation that handles all of the arrangements of that company's employees. So let's say, oh, just think of a random company. Let's use CBC as an example again. So CBC might have a division, an office within the company, like they're employees of CBC that book all of the employee travel for that company. That's called a business travel department. So whenever anyone needs to travel who's a CBC employee and they're traveling for work, they can deal with their own internal travel department called a business travel department. And they might need to provide reports on spending, just like a corporate travel agent might when they're taking care of a travel policy. And they can negotiate with suppliers as well, saying things like, we're going to send all of our travel or all of our employees to this hotel. Actually, Via Rail, there's a good example. I know that they do it. They have a business travel department and they negotiate with suppliers. For example, in Windsor, if you are a Via Rail employee, you stay at the Holiday Inn Express at the waterfront. And so Via probably has a negotiated contract with that hotel saying we will send all of our employees there. And since we have trains that go to Windsor 6 out of 7 days of the week, that means that people will be staying at your hotel 6 nights a week, and it will be this many people. Can we have a discount? That's called negotiating, and that would be with a supplier. Okay, questions before we move on? A yes or a no, or in the participant panel, or if you do have questions, you can type them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll go on and just chat with you about a few other things before we wrap up for the day. Looking good so far. Maybe you're typing, and if you are, I'll see it pop up in the chat. Okay, so normally I was planning to have this class in person, like all of us were. So at this point, I would say, head on over to Canvas and let's work on the business travel assignment together. But since we're all virtual now, the class is more or less done for the day, but there's a few reminders to tell you before that. So if I were you, I would go onto Canvas right now and download that assignment because you've already set aside time from now until the next 40 minutes or so, because we're ending early, maybe 35 minutes by the time we're done. So head on over to Canvas. There is an assignment about business travel, and I'll talk to you about it in a moment. But first, you have your first quiz next week. It's really soon, I know. It's already really quickly coming. But this quiz will cover materials covered in the class, including the business travel assignment. So there will be some questions on that quiz about this assignment. So complete week number 2 activity on Canvas. It'll help you. And the quiz, like last semester during Destination World, it will be written at the beginning of class 1 next week. So you'll have 15 minutes next Thursday at 8 o'clock in the morning. It will open at 8, it will close at 8:15. Try to sign in early. This class is really good with that already. Most of you are signed in and ready to go before 8 o'clock anyway. So make sure you sign in. Try to turn your computer on 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before, to make sure there's no problems with your connection or with your computer. The business travel assignment, it's on Canvas right now under week 2. Complete it and submit it before class next week. The only firm due date is next week before class. Okay. By this point, 4th semester, you can take care of your own time management. I actually already received a completed business travel assignment yesterday. Somebody sent it to me. So if you want to do it immediately, you can. There's already time set aside from now until 9:20 to do it. Otherwise, you do have until next class to get it done. So the due date you will see on Canvas is 8 o'clock next Thursday. But I mean, feel free to submit it early. It's easier just to get it done and out of the way. This is the business travel exercise, and you can find it on Canvas. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. 1 second. Share. What I wanted to do is stop